Hey everybody, welcome to week 7. Hard to believe we're getting that far along, right? It's getting close to midterm. Word about midterm grades, you're probably used to the drill by now, but it's not a grade per se because I don't have a midterm, I don't have a quiz or anything like that. It's just how well you're doing. You're doing fine, or you need to kind of check in more, or you're having some trouble getting in touch with me. That's coming soon. So obviously my voice is back. Yay, that's a good thing. And the grades for the essays for Unit 1 are in Brightspace. I'm still finishing up the participation grades because I got so far behind being sick, but they'll be, and they're tedious. It takes a lot more time to do them, but I'll get them up in a couple of days. So here we are. I love the discourse community. There were some wonderful, wonderful pieces in there. Great revisions on almost everybody's part. Let me know if you have problems or you have questions with the grade or anything else that happens. Okay, so that's last unit. This unit, now you should be starting to work on your projects. Um, I gotta say, the places some of you have picked are just wonderful. I mean, got everything from Costco to Luna Beach to which is fun. Nobody's ever done Costco before. And I think that's a cool place. McCarran Park. Let's see, places that people grew up are always really, really good, especially if you're kind of going back after having been away, or even if you live there. It kind of gives you a fresh perspective on that area because you're really kind of digging into the history and talking to people and sort of asking yourself questions about the place. So those are always really good. Those of you who pick Canada or Jamaica or a whole country to talk about, that's okay. It's kind of big. And remember this needs to be about people as much as about the place, because as we've read and you've all commented on, it doesn't occur to us, okay, very often that a place is a living thing. And one of the things that makes it alive is the people who use that place, who inhabit that place. So if you're going to talk about a country, you need to have some conversations with people who have opinions about it, people who are from there, um, your own experiences there. I had a student last term talk about Antigua, which is where she was from, but she didn't grow up there much. But they go back, her family would go back every year. And so she talked about a specific place. There's my doggy. About a specific place, I think it was a falls or something, that they would visit. And um, she called a bunch of people and family, and they gave her stories about what that place meant to her. And then sort of she kind of backed off, going from the narrow lens to a wide lens, like we talk about in that nut graph. I had to put together a profile. Um, the narrow lens of the falls to the wide lens about the country and what the falls meant to it. So, you can go there, just be careful. And this is not a research report. It's not a research report. It's not a research report. It is a portrait. Okay, you're going to use the research that you find to give us more, to enhance the portrait. Okay. So there's not much to do this week except to keep working. And by Sunday night or Monday morning, send me a message on Slack and let me know how you're doing. That's in the schedule, which I'll show you again in a minute. But you're just working this week. So I kind of wanted to go through a couple of things fairly quickly, just to kind of get everybody on the same page about stuff. And here we go. All right. So this is content, portrait of a place. Now I just want to remind you that there are these two excuse me, the pollen is out. There are these two student pieces from last term, I think from last term, one about skate park and one about the cemetery, that you can look at. These were my students. So again, don't forget that these are there. The schedule, here's your Padlet. And then the thing that you should be paying most attention to this week, uh, if you haven't already, are this materials for research, which may look like this, but should look like that if you hit the down button. So we'll go over here to the guidelines, just to remind yourself of kind of what you're doing. Let's see here. All right. A good place okay, so this just reminds you to be accurate, connect the physical location to stories and themes. All right. Engage with the issues. If there's something going on now, like with the piece about the green space in, is it Queens? The issue was, what do you do during a pandemic, right? How do you deal with this stuff? So, excuse me a second. Okay, so they engage the issues. And then there was my student last term who talked about the impact of social media and tourism on Montmartre, her favorite place in Paris. So, don't shy away from that if there is a controversy or there's an issue. Some people were talking about the gentrifications of their home neighborhoods and or the neighborhoods where they're living. Talk about that. Don't be afraid to talk about that. It's part of the portrait. It's part of the living current history of the place, if you will. So don't be afraid of that. Okay. Include some pictures. Pictures are always cool. Um, Even if they're historical, just put them in there. I had one student again talk about, I think it was the Chinatown, old Chinatown, in New York City, in the city. And she had some historical pictures as well as some contemporary ones. So it was a nice mix. Okay. Then just keep track of your sources. You don't have to footnote, you have to do any of that stuff, but have them in case I ask you for them, because I have been known to do that. And then the next piece is how to collect information, which is where you are now, right? Remember, yes, this is not a research piece. It's not a research report, but you have to do some research to do it. Um, and then a good way is to start with the usual, journalist questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how, to kind of get you going. Places you may go look for information. All right. Helpful historic preservation organizations. You may look up history site online. Just some pretty interesting places here. And then there are two kinds of research after you get your questions going, right? So you may want to, what does this place look like? Well, go there, right? If it's possible, go there or get some visual representation. The best way is to do a site visit and interviews. That's called field research. This stuff where you're looking things up in the library and those are secondary resources. So that's secondary research. This is primary research, field research. Field research includes site visits, interviews, recordings, okay, looking through private collections, if you can find them, or even you can find them online, okay? Site visits, go there. I know people I've talked about on the Padlet talked about going to a place like McCarran Park, and taking the camera, get your phone, listen to people talk, strike up conversations with people, observe what's around. Think of this one as using some of the same tools that you use for the discourse community, with the activity that we did with the sights and the sounds and the smells and all that stuff. It's all on the perusal, and you guys did a great job on the perusal pieces. Some really interesting conversations. And yeah, taste and touch, and smell absolutely do matter. The young woman who wrote about, the waterfalls, just the feel of the water there is different from other places. So, she talked about how it felt. Okay, so record what you can if you want to. You don't have to, but it may be easier for you. Heck, I've even had students put up video files on these, add MP4s and MP3s to it. So that's fine. Things to look for during site visits. So this is just a lot of things to think about. What happens, how people are using the space, the appearance, how it relates to the surroundings. Is it just in the middle of nowhere, or is it part of a thriving community? If you talk about some of the food areas in Brooklyn, there are a lot of food. I can't remember the food street now, but it's got a really wonderful international, food street. I think it's in Queens someplace. I'm losing my mind this morning. Um, Stay alert to get behind the scenes of a place. I had a student talk about her favorite restaurant growing up, which is still there, and she decided to go talk to the person who started the restaurant and had a wonderful discussion with, the woman who actually was the daughter of the woman who started it. And she got some really, really cool information about the history of the restaurant and about where her parents came from. So that was nice. Okay. Get behind the scenes if you can. It's always a good thing to do. Interviews, these are things about interviewing subjects. Okay. Things to, uh, questions to have, and some ideas, some hints on how to do a really good interview. Um, and active listening, more about it, how to evaluate what you've got. So these things are all really, really helpful at this point. um, The next ones are about, what do you do with it when you get it? And we're not quite there yet, but this is, some of you may be, but, you know, here's some things about theme, which I'm not going to go over right now, but you certainly can go ahead and look at them. So these are all in materials for research here, right here. Okay. So that's where you are. I did want to mention a couple of things. Let's see, what was I going to do here? Oh, this one, how to structure your future. Again, we're not quite there, but I think everybody's figured this out about how to structure one of these things. But this is a really good little template, little model. And again, from reading all the comments, and again, I don't necessarily comment on all the comments, but I do read everything. And I think people have kind of figured this out. Even the person who said, are we going to have to make graphs? And then went, oh, okay, I get it now. I just kept reading. That's fine. That's cool. So the most important thing is in an engaging opening. You know, a comment or a striking image, all the things that you do to create a really good hook. It called the beginning is a hook, the engaging opening is a hook, right? As much story, and then the ending. I just wanted to focus on these two things. The ending is a classic. The classic ending is to go back to the beginning. Say if you start with saying, you know, I grew up here, and then the end could be, this is what I know now about the place, so to tie it back to the idea that you began with. But that's a classic one. You can also do final quotes or comments. Advice and tips is really more for when we're doing information or persuasive pieces, which you're not necessarily doing. You're doing portraits. But that's the structure. Always beginning, middle, and end. It's very Aristotelian. Aristotle said there are three sections to any story: a beginning, a middle, and an end. Duh. But when we look at it in terms of how we want to structure things, it's really good to pay attention to those three parts, right? The beginning is a hook, grabbing them. Here's a nice formula for the beginning, an engaging opening or hook, and then quotes, and then a nut graph. So nut graph just tells us what it is. And then a couple of people really like this idea because it must be visual, right? So you start the article with a close-up of something interesting, a personal story, that hook, that specific thing, a quote, a comment, a fascinating piece of data, of information. And then, so you're starting up close, and then you widen it out to tell us what we're going to see. Why is this happening? What is this place? Just start giving the background stuff. So, when you get into, after the hook, you start sort of explaining why this is important. Now, this doesn't have to be, you need to pay attention to this, beat you over the head with something. It's just, this is important because this community has changed so much, and not always for the better. So I'm going to look at how that happened and why and what maybe we can do. Right. So here's some, this is just something I did in class. So this is it again, but this is in the perusal thing, obviously. I think that's all on this. Okay, so compelling headline. Now, one of the interesting things about, not that one, I want to go back to, um, let's see, this one. This one. This New York Times is really good at doing headlines and stuff. I'm the world's worst. I'm terrible at it. Can't do titles either. But this right here would make a good, if it were separated out, it would make a really good hook, really good beginning, right? Street was clogged with traffic. Now it belongs to ping pong. Well, that's going to get my attention. That's what good headlines do, and that's what good hooks do, right? And then what they did was, if you forget that that's there, pretend it's not, what the writer's done is say culturally diverse neighborhood, Jackson Heights. It's also with one of the least green space. So there's sort of two sort of competing ideas that become the beginning, and we, the reader, are going to say, wait, explain that to me, right? So you've got them from the beginning. So that's a really nice way to do it. And there's a lot of really cool detail in this article, as you've all said and all talked about. So great on that. And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about with these things. And let's go back over here, just to look at the schedule. We are right here on week 6. No, week 7. We just did week 6. This is week 7. So this is all about just going out and doing your stuff, right? Looking over all these materials, um, looking for interesting things. You may not know what you want to have as your hook. You may have to, when you first get started, this can be hard. With something like this. You may just want to start it, something boring. This is about, and I chose it because, and then continue your article, continue your profile. Something will almost always pop up as you're writing, or something will jump out at you from your research, or you'll remember a conversation. You'll go, oh, that's how I should start this. Okay, so beginnings are always meant to be revisited, unless on those wonderful occasions you got it from the beginning. You know how it's going to start, in which case you just say thank you to the writing, muses and keep going. Most people do get stuck at the beginning. Just put a placeholder, what we call a placeholder, keep going and come back and put something really cool at the beginning. All right. So Sunday or Monday, again, if you will DM me briefly on Slack or send me an email, let me know how you're doing, especially if you got problems, um, or you're just not sure what's going on. Or what I often get from people at this point is, I got so much material, I don't know where to start. To which I almost always say, well, back up. What's the most interesting thing you found? What's the most interesting experience you had there? What's the most fascinating photo you got? All right. Go back to the why you chose this in the first place. Are you still there? And focus on those things. What interesting theme has emerged from this? About, could be gentrification, it could be about community building, it could be all that kind of stuff. Um, but don't worry about that yet. This week you'll probably get there. So, just keep going and let me know how you're doing. We can brainstorm. I do have office hour. I'm doing this on Thursday morning, so I do have a Zoom hour this afternoon from 3 to 4 my time, and then again on Monday from 1 to 2. So you can always drop in anytime you want, and use use the Zoom link. All right, there it is. And you open for Zoom link, which won't open because I'm already on Zoom and I'm already here, right? So you can drop in anytime you want. If those times don't work for you, I think I forgot to put the dates on here. If those times don't work for you, let me know and we'll set up something else, or we can chat via Slack. I do that a lot with people. Um, so let me know. And I think that's it. So get to work. Great job. Look for the participation grades over the weekend. And have a good time. These are some great places, and I cannot wait to see what you're doing. So let me stop share so I can turn this off, and I will see you later. Bye.